September 21st is homecoming. That is early. And then September 24th is the next regular meeting of the school board at 5:30 p.m. here in the Instructional Planning Center in the arena. The remaining dates to remember are on the agenda. Next item is community input. Is there anybody present for community input? Seeing nobody coming forward, we'll move on to item 7, conflict disclosure and consideration of waivers. We have one from Superintendent Terry Nebelsick. It is disclosure designated DB 2019-19. And the purpose of this is to disclose that his spouse was approved to work as a substitute office secretary or a substitute para. She has not actually performed any work yet, but it's good to approve this or have this disclosure come before the board for approval, so that way it can be filed before she actually does any work.
Make a motion to approve the waiver and that it is, the terms are fair, reasonable, and not contrary to the public interest.
There is a motion and a second to approve the waiver. Any further discussion of that motion? Seeing none, we'll proceed to vote on the motion to approve the waiver. We will have the business manager call the roll.
Simmonsma.
Aye.
Van Berkom.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Bischoff.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye.
All yet in favor.
That passes. That motion passes. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. The superintendent of schools recommends approval of the following: A, approval of minutes of previous meetings. B, consideration and approval of bills. C, approval of the financial report. D, board approval of new hires. We have Aaron Miller as a volunteer at the Buchanan K-1 Center. Abby Fullerton Halter as a substitute teacher and a substitute para-educator. Alyssa Honerman as a substitute language pathologist assistant. No, I'm sorry, not a substitute. A speech language pathologist assistant. Daniel Lang is being approved as a substitute teacher and a substitute para. Robert Brooks as a SPED para. Melissa Huff as a volunteer at the Buchanan K-1 Center. Eileen Nienaber as a concessions worker. And Kara Pugsley as a classroom leader for TAP, a substitute teacher, and a substitute para. We then have 6 contracts for board approval. All 6 of them are revisions to contracts for current teachers who have obtained their master's degree. And so the revision is simply to reflect the increase in salary that comes according to our salary policy when a teacher gets a master's. And then we have 2 resignations for board approval. Daylene Martinez, who was an ESL para, and Bernadette Van Zee, a SPED para. As usual, the consent agenda can be approved in one motion. If any member wants to discuss an item or have it considered separately, they just need to ask and it will be pulled from the consent agenda. You can also ask any questions if you have any questions about an item.
I move approval of consent.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. We'll ask the business manager to call the roll.
Simmonsma.
Aye.
Van Berkom.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Bischoff.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye.
Unanimously passed.
That motion is approved. Then we will turn it over to the superintendent to celebrate successes in the district.
Thank you. First, I want to congratulate everyone on a successful beginning to the year, watching hundreds and hundreds of students, 2,500 probably before the kindergarten gets here, getting to the right place, having their parents adjust to leaving them in the different classrooms to try to be in every building the first day, and So congratulations on that start. I think that's really, really important. I also want to note that our full slate of activities is really off to a great start, from cheer and dance to football and volleyball and cross country, soccer, tennis, golf. The marching band is going great guns, and so we know that the other half to education is if we give them a solid academic base and teach them to be active and interactive with other people, that they become active citizens. And so I just want to congratulate all of the coaches, the student participants, and their parents in our full slate of activities that are going on right now. And then the principals offered this, so I certainly second the motion, but the K-5 principals in the Buchanan, Madison, and Washington centers all noted a thank you for their entire staff, making sure every child got to their new teacher, and we got off to a safe beginning. One thing our school does very, very well that I really inherited, I didn't have much to do with putting this in place, but I watched last week while school was in session, every door of the kindergarten classrooms had another set of parents waiting in order to have a fantastic meeting about what school would look like for their child. And then waiting 4 days and having the kindergartners come today while everyone else is in a routine is just a way better way to handle our children the first time they come into the district. And so I just want to thank everyone for making that possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nebelsick. We'll now move on to reports to the board. Our first report is from our business manager.
This evening, I have a report on the general fund. We're 17% of the way through the 2018-2019 budget year. To date, we've collected $2,239,000, which is 11% of the budget. Last year at this time, we'd collected $1,996,000, or 10% of that budget. So far this year, we've spent $1,336,000, or 6.7% of the budgeted expenditures. Compared to last year, we had spent $1,230,000, which was 6.5% for that same period last year. Beginning next month, you'll begin to see the teacher contract expenses show up, and so the number will crawl a little faster, and then triple teacher contract expenses will show up in June to complete the budget.
Any questions for our business manager? Seeing none, thank you very much for your report. We'll now turn it back over to the superintendent for his report.
Okay, start out on the fun side of things. Homecoming is coming up. Homecoming week actually begins a week from today with coronation. Am I right? Thank you, Jasmine. So coronation begins a week from tonight. That's why we're having the goal setting at 5, so that hopefully we're completed and out of here to be able to support that. It goes on all week with as many activities as they can possibly put in to a week in order to have a celebration with students. At the very, very end of that week, of course, is the volleyball and then the football game, and then the Hall of Fame banquet. Now, I have a family commitment with my parents that you folks have known about a long time, where I can't be at the Hall of Fame. Mr. Rodert really likes to introduce the board members, and so I've got Shelley's name down already, but if I could leave here with those who can attend the Hall of Fame, and then I would encourage you to be there right at the beginning, because Mr. Rodert likes to introduce you to people who have come back for the Hall of Fame. I want to visit just a little bit about the goal setting next week, and a note that I've had in front of me this fall as a little bit of a theme is that good is the enemy of great. We've gotten quite good at several of the things that we do, and now the question is can we, with support, but push forward to truly greatness with academic achievement. We've broken through the last couple of years with a couple of grades at the 6th and 7th grade level getting 2 state average on their academics. And so how do we continue to focus on saying if we can do it in 2 grades, we can do it in more than 2 grades, and we can set the educational community up for notice that every child here can get there. And so I think you're going to have some interesting reports next week on academic growth and proficiency, and I would just share with you a week ahead of time as we work on this that we should never discuss growth or proficiency. We should try to tie those two together so that the best and the brightest become the best and the brightest. We bring everyone along and we try to get our achievement up as high as possible. I think that's a great challenge, and we need the academic staff to know that we support them. We're here with the resources for them, and that we want to help them set really high expectations. I'm working slowly forward on what to do with school safety. I found out there's several different people we could invite to be a part of looking at that, including from Homeland Security, including from law enforcement. What we have to be careful of is Huron has a fantastic student-centered schools, and whatever we do, we have to make sure that we keep in mind the environment of learning and love while we try to say what's the most secure way that we can handle our schools. And so it can't be one or the other, it has to be both. We have to be as secure as we can, and I know that you board members put it as a goal this year to make sure that school safety stayed on our priority list. And then the last thing that I would share with you is that I'm continuing to develop, and I see development in our administrative team as we understand more and more about the personality traits of the people that we lead. And hopefully a year from now, take that to the students in the classroom, understanding that you'll have students that are very task-oriented, you'll have others that are very social, you have others that are very calculated like an engineer or a mathematician, and you'll have others that have intrinsic ability to socialize. And how do you get each of those types of people to push toward excellence? And so I've enjoyed that, and I want to keep that in the conversation with the school board throughout the year. That's my report.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? Seeing none, I'll move on to new business since we have no old business. The only item we have for today is a first reading of the brand identity guidelines for the district. So this is kind of the culmination of the brand creation process. And since we have approved the brands themselves, this is a policy that will be adopted regarding the implementation and give guidance to personnel about how to use it.
Any of the three of us or Kelly, we've all participated in this. Why don't you go ahead, Gary?
Yeah, really, this is just a guideline for anybody that's going to be using our logos, just to make sure that we don't run into the same problem we had in the past, that we end up with 17 different logos because people start changing them and distorting them. So this will make sure that we have a streamlined, professional-looking image that we'll continue to have for years and years.
And Mr. Chair, what I state is that I would really like this to be a fluid document because we learn about branding all the time. And so unless directed differently by the board, I would like this to be yet another handbook that you review each year and annually approve so that it doesn't sit in the policies for review every 7 years, but those who've worked on it can ad hoc go through it. We can ask ourselves, is it working? And so it's an annual review as part of approving your handbook. So that's what we're trying to do here with a first look at this. Okay? And then Craig, if I could put you on the spot, where are we at then? This, we'll get there. There might be some little amendments, but where are we at on the last legal step as far as, what am I missing here?
Trademark.
Thank you, trademarking.
So if I understand correctly, we've been in contact with the firm, and they need to know how many different things we're looking at. So we have to look and go, well, is the color version 1, black and white 2, inverse 3, or is it all 1? And so Friday, I believe, we got a conversation started with a firm, and they're kind of looking into. Right now, we've got 23 different versions of logos. And so do we actually have 23 different versions that need to be trademarked, or do we have,
The logo, yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of where we're at right now. We're waiting to hear back from them.
And so, Mr. Chair, that all ties together. We didn't rehearse this, but that's how this all goes. If that ties together and they can look at our handbook guidelines, then they're gonna have a little bit better idea of what needs to be trademarked and not trademarked. Kelly, from the legal side, are we close as you follow this?
Exactly like Craig said.
Okay. So this is a first reading. It'll be up for adoption then at the next meeting.
Yep, just like you do handbooks.
Any questions or discussion regarding the policy or the handbook?
Mr. Chair, because the two board members to my right have worked on this and worked on this and worked on this, we really invite the other three and the students that are on the board to read this with a fresh set of eyes by next time, in case there's something that, because we've done it over and over, that it pops out at you.
Was this created by someone locally, or was this created by the?
I can tell you
firm?
exactly what we did unless you guys went different. I have pretty good connections to someone who has a very bold trademark thing, and I had permission to take that and modify everything in that to Huron instead of that school district, and then took it to the committee as kind of our first look. And then we changed several things that just didn't fit our personality, but that's how we started rather than paying legal services to get this far. Okay. For instance, there's one place in there that talks about that it's prohibited without clearance from the superintendent, and I've really become aware of what that is. Okay, that's probably the most important part of keeping this from suddenly being on a brand of something we do not endorse. Okay, whether that be digital or whether that be a product or a wall, whatever, is that it's got protections that say no, you have to have the clearance. Some of that clearance I don't think will be complicated. When the local vendors who make shirts and caps want to work with us, we'll just thank them for keeping us informed because they so badly want to be in line with us. But it's to protect us from a rogue attack on this work. Is that fairly stated?
And the big thing, I feel like we worked really hard to kind of get the colors right, get the font right, get the look right. And so in there, you'll see like, don't make the H a different color, don't stretch it, don't change the tagline from what we've adopted to something else to fit your own agenda, essentially. It's a lot of it's really common sense stuff, but it just needs to be spelled out so that if somebody has a question, we can say, well, in our brand guideline, this is what it says. So if somebody other than the three of us or anybody else who's kind of been involved in this, if they come to them with a question, they can say, well, brand guideline says this.
Ms. Peets, are you comfortable with this, or anything we're missing from, you stepped in right at the end of all this, and you and Amanda have done a lot of the legwork. Are you okay from back there on this?
Yeah, we're just waiting to hear we sent the notice on Friday, and we're waiting to hear the legalese, the interpretation of expense, and that makes a difference on what the budget would have to be to.
Okay, I didn't know you were going to speak, so it was in front of a microphone, so now I've got folks out there, so I want you to go up and make sure the button's out so that the public hears what you just said. The committee's aware, but the public needs to be aware.
We have a phone call on Friday made to the group that's going to be legalizing this for us, and we needed clarification on exactly what the expenses were so that Mr. Christopherson could then figure out the budget to finish the whole plan of the branding up for us so that we have exact numbers and no specifics on what we want.
Good.
And I would like to point out that the coaches on the football team have
Yes.
got some apparel now with the new logos on it. It looks extremely sharp, so.
I noticed that. It does look sharp, you're right.
Do you think there's a connection between that and 3-0?
I think 3-0 and the new logo, there's a big connection.
I will say that I was surprised. I saw someone during the fair walking around with a shirt that had the H on it. That's already out there. Well, as I'm paging through here, the tiger head appears under athletic tiger logos. Is the head designed to be mainly an athletic logo?
That's a good question. With this interpretation, the superintendent's going to let them take anything off of that they want and go forward.
Yeah.
I think the reason is that there's no doubt the base academic logo is the H with the Huron, and we are the Tigers, which is our activities.
Yeah.
And so, to me, that's why they're labeled that way.
I guess when we were working on the design, we called it the Spirit logo, not the athletic logo. Maybe the activities logo would be a better name for it, or the Spirit logo. That'd probably be a better fit.
That might be a good thing to change. Yep.
So I guess you guys can go through that.
Well, and that might be one where, whether we get it before you approve it, but we might just agree next time.
Yeah.
Think about it, your group, but to amend that to say Spirit logos. 'Cause you're right, that's what the committee called it from the beginning.
Yeah, there's a page called athletic logos. There's a page called tiger logo marks, and so I guess if I'm picking this up for the first time and I'm
Yep.
the band, do I think that I can use those?
You certainly
logos?
can, so I like that. If anybody has a better word than Spirit logos, the superintendent's gonna recommend Spirit logos unless,
Okay.
because actually that's what we were doing before it
Right.
went forward.
So, okay. Anything else on this? Shelley, anything from you?
No, I think that clarifies, so, sounds good.
Okay. Well, then that's a first reading on that. And it's a pretty short agenda today, so that concludes our business. I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
A motion, a second to adjourn. Business manager will call the roll.
Simmonsma,
Aye.
Van Berkom.
Aye.
Lee,
Aye.
Bischoff.
Aye.
Wheeler.
Aye.
5-0.
That motion carries. We are adjourned.